But you were saying this is the scariest movie that you've been involved with.
Yeah.
Why and how is it scary?
You know, there was a film, probably the scariest movie I've ever seen, was a film that Joe Losey made in the 60s, and it was called The Servant. And Harold Pinter wrote this, and there wasn't any monster, but it was a psychological drama about dominance and transference of personality. And it shook me to my essence. Scarier than any monster movie I could imagine. And I think that's what we wanted to get, or what I wanted to get out of this film, is that it's not the monster outside, it's the monster inside.
Exactly.
And the monster inside is created by us. The monster we perceive out there is only there because it exists inside of us.
Right.
Now, we also went to great pains in this film to not make the Mothman, whatever it is, monolithic. Everyone perceives it in a different way.
Exactly.
And even the guy we would expect to have the most horrific experiences, which is, my brain.
Will Patton?
Will. Will's character, in the end, is totally sanguine with the energy of this thing, whatever it is. To him, it's white light. Him, it's totally balanced and inviting and warm. So in many ways, what people are talking about is a death experience when they have this experience with this thing, whatever it is. And as we're taught in many different cultures, that death experience is radically different and based on the content of our minds.
Okay. Yeah, Roman Polanski was also a master at creating a chilling
That's true.
effect in his film with Repulsion and Rosemary's Baby.
I brought up Repulsion to him quite a bit in some of those moments of creating, again, kind of a hallucinogenic feeling. Repulsion probably more than any of them, because it's such a tone poem of just an essential quality of eeriness and chilly creepiness, and that you don't know if you're in a mad person's mind, or we really are experiencing something that exists out of mind.
Right. Now, throughout this film, you have various degrees of fear. How do you prepare for that as an actor to be able to make it believable? Because there are different degrees of fear that you experience. You know, whether you're on the phone with the entity or...
Well, you got to be clear. I mean, most of this was shot out of sequence. Most movies are. So you've got to have a good sense of where you're at in the story all the time. And there are different types of reactions. Obviously, the stuff in the beginning when my wife is ill is a mixture of the emotion any of us would have with a family member or a loved one of any kind who's sick and losing them. But that's also mixed with Deborah Messing, who's so terrific in the film. Her total belief in her experience that something happened to her, something otherworldly. And that's really what infects the movie. It's actually Deborah's performance. That's the tone for the whole film.
And you talk about being in a constant state of meditation. You know, everything you do is you're meditating in a way.
We all are. We all are. It just depends on what you meditate on. You
Yeah.
meditate on anger and hatred, or you meditate on love and compassion.
I just wanted to know if when fear comes into your life, if there's a way that you use this to find a solution quickly.
Well, one thing I find, what we're led to believe, and our bodies kind of lead us to believe, and our normal brain, the usual brain, leads us to believe, is our first reaction is the most honest one, which is when you get hit, that kind of reaction of to come back, you feel very powerful. You feel like, well, that's the right thing, but in fact, it's not at all. So one thing that I have learned is to give any strong emotion space. Any strong emotion. You know, unless you're a Buddha, which we aren't, but any strong emotion is going to be tied to some kind of attachment, which is only going to lead to some kind of negative result. So just leaving a little space, let the heated emotion, no matter what it is, whether you perceive it as positive or negative.
Right.
Let it cool a bit. Let some wisdom rise. Be fueled by the emotion, the energy of the emotion, but the energy then is feeding wisdom as opposed to action.
Just talk about Laura Linney, working with her again, and Mark Pellington's direction. I know you probably watch dailies, but when you saw it for the first time.
Well, Laura is, you know, she was the secret weapon.
Yeah.
And now she's not a secret anymore. Everyone knows, you know, how terrific she is. And a part that could have been really a stock character, I think she's done a lot with. And I just love working with her. I'd work with her on anything. So I was delighted to work with her again on this. Mark did a very interesting thing with me early on. We had discussions about what the film could be, what was latent in the script and we could bring out. And Mark very quickly translated those talks into images, and he sent me a book of images that he had pulled, whether it was photographic, painting, drawings, little phrases, but just started to create a universe of images, just like you do as a child. You start to pile up information that creates our universe. And the universe of Mothman was starting to emerge in that. And you could see what he was going to try to do anyhow, in terms of images, right, which was feeding the kind of emotion that I wanted this piece to have also. So I think we were all working in the same drive chain.
Okay. This film is a departure from previous films. How were you involved? When did you get involved? And were you involved in the script writing process?
This was bought by Tom Rosenberg, a friend of mine, producer, probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Gave me the script to read. I was intrigued by it. It was not the usual film I am drawn to, but it had a really powerful narrative, strong, driving narrative, but it also had these other possibilities. It wasn't quite sure what the film was in that first draft. Right. It hadn't made up its mind yet, right, whether it was a monster movie or it was a smart movie or what. And so we kind of dove in, and with many different writers and other directors involved, frankly, tried to solve the puzzle. I was pushing it into the metaphysics all the time. Tom also wanted to make a smart movie, but I think he also was, you know, was embracing the scary side of the movie, which, you know, it became obvious if you destroyed the scary part, the metaphysics became dry. So over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, who knows how many drafts, right, it was losing itself. And I frankly started to drift away. I said, look, it's just not feeling good to me. And then Mark came in, kind of pulled the best of all these different drafts together and created a pretty streamlined story, which was the first time there was a balance, a good balance between the scary movie, the genre movie, and a smart movie that was really going to engage ideas. And then we all got together on that basis and started running with that script, adding to it, refining, rewriting characters, coming up with language that was more appropriate. You know, as his visual sense and sense of sound started to come in, we realized what we could do in terms of storytelling that wasn't in the verbal narrative, but was in more pure filmmaking.
And what do you want people to get out of this film when they leave the theater?
In the end, really, just that the universe is a benevolent place. Right. Essentially, we are moving towards light. You know, whatever we're going through at this point, it's all in service of getting there. Right. It's not to darkness we're going to light. Okay. And everything in the universe is there for us to get there. It's feeding us if we're open to it.
And I understand on the subject of fear, your son's middle name in Tibetan means fearless.
Exactly.
And could you give us his full name?
His full name is Homer James Jigme Gere.
Okay. And Jigme is fearless.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting thing. He not unlike Job, he's starting out with everything perfect in the beginning of the film. He's a guy with a nice job at the Washington Post. He and his wife are very much in love, and they're buying a new house. The mortgage is going to be a lot, but they're going to make it, and they're talking about a kid, and everything is perfect. And literally out of a laugh, everything is taken away. He loses his wife. The job becomes not what it was. He's in danger probably of losing his job. Years go by and he can't quite get it back together, but this obsessive quality he has about his wife still informs everything he does. He leaves for an interview late one night, and he finds that he traveled 600 miles without knowing what happened, how he got there. And he's in a small town where other people have been having bizarre things happen to them. And that sets us in motion, what this film is.
Why should I see this movie?
I think it's a smart film, and it's a scary film. And it's a rare thing, I think, in films today to get both of them. I think in some ways, in its best moments, I think it kind of shakes you to your foundations of what you believe reality is, or what the mind is, what madness is, why we're here, where we can go, what the possibilities are. And at the same time, it's a really strong, driving narrative that should really scare you. I've never done a movie like this. I mean, roles, it's interesting. I think I approach the roles the same way, so it's not that bizarre. But to do this, something that is essentially in this type of a genre, it's the first time I've done it, yeah.
Did you
And I
enjoy
think
it?
Mark, yeah, I did like it. I think Mark Pellington was a perfect director for this too, because he brought some things we found that you just can't say in this film. And you have to project ideas, deal with ideas, ask questions, sometimes not verbally, but with a camera. And it's an extremely difficult thing to do. And I think in many points in this film, he was able to give the visual equivalent of a question and an answer. And so, I mean, that's kudos to him on that.